You may have walked past medicine this morning and never noticed it, not because it was hidden, because it was too familiar. A yellow flower in the lawn, a ribbed leaf crushed under a shoe, a fuzzy stalk growing near a fence, a patch of nettles everyone avoids, a burr stuck to a dog's fur, a bitter root hiding under ordinary soil. Most people see weeds. Old household healers saw a shelf, not a clean glass shelf with labels and prices, a living shelf. One that changed with spring rains, summer heat, autumn roots, and the first cold evenings when people started drying leaves near the stove. And here is the part that should make you pause. Some of the plants we now mow down, spray, pull out or ignore, were once kept close for small wounds, tired throats, rough skin, aching joints, nervous evenings, heavy meals, cough seasons, and those everyday discomforts that did not always send a person to a doctor. They were not magic. They were not miracle cures, they were plants people learned by use, mistake, smell, bitterness, touch and memory. Dandelion, plantain, yarrow, calendula, nettle, comfrey, mullein, elderflower, red clover, horsetail, meadowsweet, chickweed, burdock, marshmallow root, elecampane, St. John's wort, lemon balm, sage, thyme, chamomile, 20 forgotten medicinal plants. Many of them still grow close to houses, paths, gardens, fields and old fences. Some are still studied today for their tannins, mucilage, bitter compounds, essential oils, salicylates, flavonoids, minerals, or active plant chemicals. But before we touch a single leaf, let's be honest, no plant replaces a doctor, no herb cures every disease overnight. No tea, salve, tincture, root, bark, flower, or capsule gives you permission to stop medication, ignore symptoms, or treat a serious condition by yourself. This video is for education and general interest. If you are pregnant, breastfeeding, dealing with liver disease, kidney disease, heart problems, bleeding disorders, autoimmune illness, allergies, or if you take prescription medication, speak with a qualified professional before using herbs seriously. And never harvest from sprayed lawns, roadsides, industrial ground, public parks with unknown chemicals, dog areas, drainage ditches, or any place you do not fully trust. That warning is not meant to kill the mystery. It protects the mystery from becoming stupidity, because the real story is not that plants heal instantly. The real story is that once you learn their names, the world changes instantly. A weed becomes a clue, a leaf becomes a tool, a flower becomes a memory. A root becomes something your great-grandparents might have understood without needing a label. Let's begin with the plant most people have tried to destroy. Dandelion, you know it. Yellow flower, white puffball, deep root. The plant that ruins a perfect lawn and comes back after you pull it like it has unfinished business. For many homeowners, dandelion is an enemy. They dig at it, snap the stem, break the root, walk away satisfied, and then a week later there it is again, fresh leaves, another flower, another little yellow flag of rebellion. But dandelion was once valued as a spring plant. Its young leaves were eaten as bitter greens, its flowers were used in syrups and country-style wines. Its root was dried, roasted and brewed into a dark, bitter drink the people used when coffee was expensive or unavailable. The part people hate most is the root, and that is exactly where the story gets interesting. Dandelion root stores the plant's energy. It contains inulin, a prebiotic fiber that can feed beneficial gut bacteria in some people, although it can also cause gas or bloating in sensitive stomachs. The plant also has bitter compounds, which explains its old reputation as a digestive bitter.
That does not mean you should drink dandelion tea by the gallon. It can affect urination. It may interact with diuretics, lithium, diabetes medication, blood thinners and other drugs. People with gallbladder problems, kidney problems, liver disease or allergies to ragweed and related plants need caution. The lesson of dandelion is not this weed fixes everything. The lesson is sharper. The thing you tried to kill may be the thing you never learned to understand. Now plantain. Not the banana-like fruit, the weed. The one that grows low to the ground, pressed flat near paths, driveways, compacted soil and old yards. You may have stepped on it hundreds of times without knowing its name. Plantain leaves have strong ribs running from base to tip. Tear one gently and those fibres stretch like tiny cords. In old household care, fresh plantain leaves were crushed and placed on minor bites, stings, scratches and irritated skin. A backyard bandage. Not for emergencies, not for deep wounds. Not for infections, but for the kind of small outdoor trouble that happens when people garden, walk, work and live close to the ground. Researchers have examined Plantago species for anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial and wound-supporting compounds. That does not turn plantain into a replacement for proper wound care. If a cut is deep, if there is swelling, pus, fever, a spreading red line, an animal bite or a serious allergic reaction, you need medical help. Still, plantain is fascinating because of where it grows, near feet, near paths, near the places where small injuries happen. It is almost too convenient, which is why people stopped noticing it. Something useful can grow so close that it becomes invisible. Now yarrow. At first, yarrow looks gentle. Feathery leaves, flat clusters of pale flowers, a plant you might glance at and forget. But the old stories around yarrow are not gentle. Its Latin name, Achillea millefolium, connects it to Achilles, the warrior of Greek legend. Whether the legend is literal is less important than the memory it preserved. Yarrow was associated with soldiers, cuts, bleeding and battlefield care. People used yarrow as an astringent wound herb, especially for minor bleeding. It was also used in traditional teas for feverish states and digestion. Modern studies have looked at yarrow for anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial and astringent activity. But here is where respect comes in. Yarrow can trigger allergic reactions in people sensitive to ragweed, daisies, chrysanthemums and related plants. It may interact with blood thinners or sedatives. It should not be used casually during pregnancy, and no plant should be placed on a serious wound that needs professional care. Yarrow teaches a hard lesson. A delicate flower can carry a serious reputation. Do not judge plant strength by softness. Now, calendula. Calendula looks like warmth made visible, orange petals, golden heads. A flower that seems more suited to a sunny garden than the medicine shelf. But calendula became one of the great household skin plants. The flowers were infused into oils, stirred into salves, used in washes, and kept for rough, dry, chapped or irritated skin. It was the plant of cracked hands, weathered cheeks, small scratches, and the everyday damage of work. Not dramatic, useful. Calendula contains flavonoids, triterpenoids, and other compounds studied for anti-inflammatory and skin-supportive effects. You still see it in creams and balms today because its reputation never fully disappeared. But it is not safe for every person in every situation. People allergic to the daisy family may react. Serious burns, infected wounds, deep cuts, spreading redness or swelling need medical care. Calendula's lesson is domestic. A flower does not need a dark forest legend to matter.
Sometimes the important plant is the one drying in a paper bag near a kitchen window, waiting to become oil for winter hens. Now nettle. Nettle does not allow you to ignore it. Touch it carelessly and it stings. Tiny hairs on the leaves and stems inject irritating compounds into the skin. A flash of heat, a sharp burn, a lesson you remember. Because of that sting, many people treat nettle as nothing but trouble. But in old food traditions, nettle was one of the great spring greens. Cook it, dry it or prepare it correctly and the sting disappears. People use nettle in soups, teas and tonics. It contains minerals such as iron, calcium, magnesium and potassium, along with plant compounds studied for anti-inflammatory, urinary and allergy-related effects. The plant that stings can also feed. That is a perfect contradiction, but nettle needs caution. It may interact with blood pressure medication, blood sugar medication, diuretics, lithium, blood thinners and other drugs. People with kidney problems should be careful. It can affect blood pressure and blood sugar in some contexts. Nettle teaches that knowledge changes the plant. To the careless hand it is pain. To the informed cook it is soup. Same leaf, different relationship now, comfrey. Slow down here. Comfrey is one of the plants that proves herbal knowledge must never become reckless enthusiasm. In old herbals, comfrey was sometimes called knitbone. It was used externally for bruises, sprains, sore joints and injuries. The plant contains allantoin, a compound associated with tissue repair, and some comfrey creams have been studied for topical pain and sprain support. That sounds impressive, and it is. But comfrey also contains pyrrolizidine alkaloids, compounds that can damage the liver if taken internally. Internal use is risky and not recommended. It should not be used on deep wounds, broken skin, during pregnancy or breastfeeding, or without understanding the risks.
This is the plant that separates serious herbal education from dangerous internet advice. A lazy video says, comfrey heals bones. A responsible one says, comfrey has a long external tradition, some modern topical research, and serious internal safety concerns. That may sound less exciting. It is also the truth. Comfrey teaches that benefit and danger can sit in the same leaf. Now mullein. Mullein looks like something you would notice even if you did not know plants. A tall flower stalk, soft fuzzy leaves, a pale woolly texture that feels almost like flannel. People used mullein for the lungs, throat and irritated respiratory passages. The leaves were made into teas. The flowers were sometimes infused into oils for folk ear preparations. The plant contains mucilage and saponins, which helps explain its old reputation as soothing and softening. The leaf feels soft. The traditional use was softening. You can see why people remembered it. But details matter. Mullein tea must be strained very well, because the tiny hairs can irritate the throat. Ear oil should never be used if there is severe pain, drainage, fever, suspected infection, or a perforated eardrum. That needs medical care. Mullein teaches texture. Old plant knowledge was not just chemistry, it was touch, smell, shape, season, and the memory of what a plant felt like in the hand. Now elderflower. Elder has always carried a little shadow of folklore. Creamy white flowers, dark berries, old stories, seasonal syrups, teas for the cold months. Elderflowers were used in teas and cordials, often for cold season discomfort and feverish states. Elderberries became famous for immune support. Modern research has examined elderberry preparations around viral respiratory infections, though results vary and product quality matters. But elder is a plant of boundaries. The flowers and ripe cooked berries have traditional uses. Leaves, stems, roots and unripe berries can contain compounds that may cause nausea, vomiting or worse if misused. Raw berries can upset the stomach. So elder is not a plant you casually eat from root to leaf. It asks for preparation. Rightness, correct part, respect. Elder teaches that a plant can be generous and guarded at the same time. Now red clover. You have seen it in fields, lawns and roadside meadows. Round, pink-purple flower heads, soft leaves, bees working over it with total focus. Red clover was used in teas and old formulas for skin, women's health and seasonal cleansing traditions. The interesting part is its isoflavones, plant compounds that can act somewhat like phytoestrogens. That is why red clover has been studied for menopausal symptoms, bone health and cardiovascular markers. But the same reason it is interesting is the reason it needs caution. People with hormone-sensitive conditions, those taking hormonal therapy, blood thinners, or those who are pregnant or breastfeeding should not use red clover casually. Red clover looks gentle. Chemically, it has a voice. That is a theme you should keep noticing. The plants that look soft are not always weak. The plants that look common are not always simple. Now horsetail. Horsetail looks prehistoric because, in a sense, it is. It comes from an ancient plant lineage, jointed stems, rough texture, no soft flower inviting you in. It looks like a green fossil standing upright in wet soil. Traditional use connected horsetail with urinary support, hair, nails, bones and connective tissue. Much of that reputation comes from silica, a mineral associated with structure. But horsetail has serious cautions. Some species are unsafe. Some can contain thiaminase, which can break down vitamin B1. Long-term use can be risky.
It may interact with diuretics, lithium, diabetes medication, and heart or kidney conditions. This is not a casual everyday tea for everyone. Horsetail teaches that the ancient-looking plants are not automatically gentle plants. The romance is real, the risk is real, both belong in the story. Now meadowsweet smells almost too lovely for the chemistry it carries. Creamy white flowers, a sweet almond-like scent, a plant that looks like it belongs beside a stream in a painting. But inside meadowsweet is a link to one of the biggest stories in medicine. It contains salicylates, compounds connected to pain and fever traditions and linked historically to aspirin-like drugs. The old botanical name spirea is part of the story behind the word aspirin. A meadow flower and a medicine cabinet suddenly touch. That is the kind of bridge that makes forgotten plants so fascinating. But salicylates also mean caution. People allergic to aspirin, taking blood thinners, dealing with ulcers, bleeding disorders, kidney disease, or children with viral illness should avoid casual use. Pregnant people should get guidance. Meadowsweet teaches the rule we keep meeting. If a plant has compounds strong enough to matter, it may also have compounds strong enough to cause trouble. Power and caution belong together. Now chickweed. Chickweed is easy to miss. Small, soft green, often growing in cool seasons in gardens, damp corners and disturbed soil. Chickens like it, which helped give it its name. In traditional use, chickweed was considered cooling and soothing. People used it as a gentle edible green and in skin preparations for irritation, dryness and itching. It does not have the dramatic reputation of yarrow. It does not sting like nettle. It does not tower like mullein. It whispers, and that is part of its charm. But small green plants are easy to misidentify.
Chickweed has lookalikes, and not all are safe. Harvest only from clean soil and do not put unknown plants on irritated skin without caution. Chickweed teaches that not every useful plant announces itself. Some useful things stay low to the ground and wait for the person who knows. Now burdock. Burdock grabs your sleeve before you ever think to use it. Its burrs cling to clothing, socks, animal fur and shoelaces. Those tiny hooks famously helped inspire Velcro. That alone makes burdock a plant people remember, even if they remember it with annoyance. But under the plant is the root. Burdock root has been used as food and in traditional herbal practice. In Japanese cooking, it is known as gobo and eaten as a vegetable. In Western herbal language, burdock was often described as a blood purifier, a phrase we should handle carefully. Usually, it pointed toward old ideas about skin, digestion, liver support and elimination. Burdock root contains inulin, like dandelion root, along with other compounds studied for antioxidant and metabolic effects. But it may interact with diabetes medication, blood thinners, diuretics, and it can trigger allergic reactions in people sensitive to related plants. Young burdock can also be confused with other plants, so identification matters. Burdock teaches contradiction. The burrs annoy you, the root feeds you. Nature likes to make us look twice. Now marshmallow root. Forget the candy. The real marshmallow plant, Althea officinalis, has a root rich in mucilage. When soaked or brewed, it releases a slippery texture that tells the story before anyone explains it. This plant was used traditionally for dry throats, irritated coughs, digestion and urinary discomfort. The mucilage coats and softens. You can almost feel why people reach for it. Some plants are sharp, some are bitter, some sting. Marshmallow root is different. It soothes by softness.
But even this gentle texture has cautions. Mucilage may slow the absorption of medications, so it should be taken separately from prescription drugs. People with diabetes should be careful because it may affect blood sugar. Serious throat, stomach or urinary symptoms need proper care. Marshmallow root teaches that strength does not always feel strong. Sometimes strength feels like a soft layer over something raw. Now elecampane. Elecampane is not a delicate little tea herb. It has broad leaves, yellow flowers, and a thick aromatic root. Its Latin name is Inula helenium, and old herbal traditions used it for the lungs, coughs, digestion, and bitter root formulas. The root contains inulin compounds such as allantollactone, which have been studied for antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory activity. Elecampane feels like an old apothecary drawer, rooty, bitter, aromatic, strong. It may irritate the stomach, and it can cause allergic reactions in people sensitive to the daisy family. It should not be used during pregnancy without professional guidance. Elecampane teaches that forgotten plants were not always gentle. Some had a bite, some smelled like soil and medicine. Some were respected because they demanded respect. Now St. John's wort. This plant deserves special attention. Bright yellow flowers, long history, famous reputation, serious risks. St. John's wort has been used traditionally for mood. Modern research has studied it for mild to moderate depression, and some studies suggest it may help in certain cases. But this is where the warning must be loud. St. John's wort interacts with many medications. It affects liver enzymes and drug metabolism. It can reduce the effectiveness of birth control pills, blood thinners, antidepressants, HIV medications, transplant drugs, heart medications, and many others. Combined with certain antidepressants, it may contribute to serotonin syndrome. This plant is not casual.
If a herb can affect mood and medication metabolism, it is not just natural background noise. It is pharmacologically active. St. John's wort teaches the most important safety lesson of all. Some herbs are powerful enough to help. That also means they are powerful enough to interfere. Now lemon balm. After St. John's wort, lemon balm feels like a deep breath. Rub a leaf between your fingers and the scent rises. Lemony, green, soft, calming. It belongs to the mint family and has been used traditionally for nervous tension, sleep support, digestion and mood. Modern research has looked at lemon balm for anxiety, sleep, cognition and antiviral activity in topical preparations. It contains rosmarinic acid and aromatic compounds that may help explain some of its effects. A cup of lemon balm tea in the evening feels different from a root decoction or a bitter tonic. It is not dramatic. It is almost domestic. A quiet leaf, a warm cup, a slower breath. But even gentle herbs can have cautions. Lemon balm may affect thyroid function in some contexts and can increase sedation if combined with calming medications. Lemon balm teaches that scent, ritual and chemistry often work together. Sometimes the first effect of a plant is the breath you take when you smell it. Now sage. Sage has a dry, strong aroma. It belongs in kitchens, throat teas, mouth rinses, old cleansing rituals, and winter cooking. Traditional use connected sage with sore throats, digestion, sweating, memory, and cleansing. Modern studies have examined sage for antimicrobial, cognitive, and anti-inflammatory effects. But sage is not harmless in every form. Some sage species contain thujone, which can be toxic in high amounts. Essential oil and high-dose use can be risky, especially for pregnant women, people with seizure disorders, and those taking certain medications. Food amounts and concentrated extracts are not the same thing. That line matters. A few leaves in a meal, a cup of tea, an essential oil. A capsule. Different worlds. Sage teaches that the kitchen and the apothecary can overlap, but they should not be confused. Now thyme. Thyme is tiny but fierce. Small leaves, sharp aroma. A scent that instantly makes food feel deeper. Thyme contains thymol, a compound known for antimicrobial activity. Thymol appears in some mouthwashes and antiseptic products, which tells you how serious this little herb can be. Traditional use of thyme often focused on coughs, sore throats, digestion and respiratory comfort. Thyme tea, thyme steam, thyme honey and thyme syrups appear in many household traditions. But thyme essential oil is strong. It can irritate skin and mucous membranes and should not be swallowed casually. Pregnant women, children and people with certain conditions need caution with concentrated forms. Thyme teaches that size means nothing. A tiny leaf can carry a powerful scent. A tiny compound can change a whole preparation. The plant is small. The chemistry is not. Now chamomile. Chamomile is so familiar that people underestimate it. Small, daisy-like flowers, apple-like scent, a cup before bed, a tea for the stomach. A plant many people think of as gentle, almost boring. But chamomile became famous for a reason. It has been studied for sleep, anxiety, digestion and inflammation. It contains apigenin, a compound that can interact with receptors associated with calm. Still, people allergic to ragweed, daisies or related plants may react. Chamomile may interact with blood thinners or sedatives. It is gentle for many, not automatically safe for all. Chamomile teaches that familiar does not mean weak. Sometimes a plant becomes common because it keeps proving useful, not loudly, repeatedly. There is another thing people rarely admit about these plants. They were not used in isolation from life. A person did not simply grab one herb and expect it to undo sleepless nights, poor food, dirty water, hard labour, fear, grief and infection.
Plants lived inside a larger pattern: rest, food, washing, warmth, prayer, observation, clean cloth, fresh air, and the judgment of someone who had seen many seasons. That is why modern people often misunderstand old remedies. They pull one plant out of its world and try to turn it into a product, a capsule, a dropper bottle, a dramatic promise on a label. But a plant is not only a product, it is a relationship. Where did it grow? Who picked it? Was it the right season? Was it dried properly? Was it fresh? Was it mouldy? Was it the leaf, the flower, the root, the bark, the seed? Was it meant for skin, steam, tea, food, scent, or nothing at all for that particular person? Old herbal knowledge was full of these tiny decisions, and those tiny decisions are exactly what disappear when someone online says, just use this herb. That is too simple, too fast, too dangerous. The more you learn about these forgotten plants, the less you want reckless claims. You start wanting precision. You start asking better questions, and that is when the subject becomes genuinely interesting, because the real mystery is not whether plants can do anything. Of course plants can do things. A coffee bean can wake you up, a hot pepper can make your face sweat, garlic can fill a room in seconds, nettle can sting your skin, aloe gel can feel cooling on a burn. A bitter root can change the way your mouth waters. The question is not whether plants act. The question is how, for whom, in what form, and with what risk. That is where the old world and the modern lab finally meet. Now we have reached the middle of the story, and this is where the question becomes sharper. Why did people forget so many of these plants? Not because all of them stopped working, not because every old use was foolish, not because modern medicine is bad. It is not. Modern medicine saves lives every day.
That pause is where knowledge enters. And once knowledge enters, the world gets richer. Now tell me in the comments, which of these forgotten medicinal plants surprised you most? Dandelion, plantain, yarrow, nettle, comfrey, St. John's wort, meadowsweet, thyme, or one you have growing near your home right now? And if you want more videos about plants people ignore, pull out, mow down, or walk past every day, subscribe to the channel, because the next forgotten remedy may already be growing right under your feet.